Hi, my name is John Poole, and this is my assignment. Um, for the assignment, the first question was how is each phase best um, concept at the college level? Well, to begin, the three phases are pre-engagement, engagement, and post-engagement. The pre-engagement phase is essentially the prep before the actual lesson. To do this at the college level would be, to me, accessing the prior knowledge of the students or setting them up so that you as the teacher know where they're at, or getting them to a level that you're comfortable at before the lesson actually begins. It actually states pre-testing, grouping in this phase, which to me is a little different. I would actually do that in an engagement process, but it says in the pre-engagement for college level, that will be that part of that process. The engagement phase is the actual lesson planning part, or the implementation implementation of the lesson plan. That phase is just basically the lesson, setting it up with the materials, the environment, comparing, actually teaching the lesson. And then the last phase, which I have, is post engagement. And this is, to me, is basically like the review phase. It essentially is seeing if all expectations were met, how the students did on the assessments, reviewing the overall lesson plan to see if the teacher met their goals. And to me, on the college level, this one will be a little bit more in depth because it's harder to recognize what the students' expectations are unless they're set up previously, and the teacher expectations in comparison to grade school, where everything is set up by standards. The college level, the expectations are a little bit different, so it's harder to manage and go about checking that. The second question was how relevant is each phase to the success of the college teacher learning effort? The phases are important to the learning effort, just in different ways. Previously, I'm sure we were all students beforehand, so we recognize what it's like to be on the receiving end of a lesson plan from the teacher, and now comparing it to where the roles are switched now. The pre-engagement phase, um, to set up the success of the learning phase, is, to me, kind of, it's important because it sets the pace of the lesson. It lets the teacher know this is where the students are, this is where we need to get them, this is where we need to get them, this is what they need, this is how fast the lesson is going to go, they're not getting the material or they are getting it. This is where the pre-stage sets up, I guess, the ending process. Um, the engagement phase, which would be my personal favorite, because of the lesson planning. With the college level learning, teachers have more creativity with their lesson plans. Although it's a little bit more difficult with a larger number of students, with smaller numbers, teachers have more creativity. They can change the lesson plan, do group projects. But if it's a larger amount, it typically goes with the lectures, and then a test is given out. With this engagement phase, it's a little bit, I think that this is a key to the success, is determining in the pre-engagement phase what your students are capable of and what their learning style is. If you are a lecture teacher but you don't have lecture students, you won't have the post-engagement results that you wanted or that you expected. And that's kind of what the post-engagement phase is with the learning effort. It's recognizing, to me, what your students are, how your students learn best, and comparing it and getting them to that level while you do your assessment. The third question is, what are the areas of each phase in need of theoretical elaboration? For the pre-engagement, I think that it would be a little bit more research for the assessment process. It's really hard to set up an assessment in the pre-learning phase because you're not really sure which way your students are going to learn a lesson, and what worked for a student for one lesson may not work for the same student on the second time. And making the assessments diverse but still effective, I think to me needs a little bit more research on that aspect of it. Um, Also, I think deciding on the method of instruction, whereas certain teachers, certain students learn by lectures, videos, just giving them the material and they'll read it on their own. Some have to actually be taught. It's recognizing how the students that you have, recognizing their strengths and going from there. I think that needs elaboration or research to be more effective. The engagement and post engagement phases are similar to me, with assessments, I would say, being the weak points, but they have the lesson planning and the overall effectiveness of the teacher for the post engagement phase. I would say that needs a little bit more elaboration or research. When teaching college students, the expectations, as mentioned earlier, are completely different from teaching grade school. They have established a core standards. Not every state has them, but the core standards for grade schools now. And for college, the core standards are not applied. So knowing what the expectations are for the student, the faculty, the college, and the teacher, and combining all of that, and then you have to review it in that post engagement phase. I think that needs a little bit more elaboration or a little bit more research to make sure that everything is being met. The last question was, what do the fields of adult education and educational psychology say about the activities of the three phases? And from what I can see, they have a lot to say about it. What stands out to me is that they essentially they give the good points, and they also mention the areas of concern. For me, that stands out because it shows that nothing is perfect, and dealing with people, humans in general, with nothing being perfect, and people always changing, you have to be willing to change with them. If we still had to process the teaching methods of the teachers that they used decades ago or 5 or 6 decades ago, we wouldn't be where we are. Now it's a technology society, and the students are more on the technology side, or even now with the online classes. So using those methods and updating them and keeping them updated when society changes, or when the teachers can recognize that their methods are not being effective anymore, that's important to me. That's stood out to me when they recognized that this is not the end all for developing lesson plans. And that is going to be my assignment for this week one.